Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. New year, new beginning. January 1st, 2021. First episode. First episode of the Black Oracle. We're going to have a show talking today about the COVID. And the COVID and how it's affecting us. Now, there's a lot of things that have been talked about. I want to basically go over certain things that some things you might know about, some things not. How do you feel about the vaccine? It's one of the questions I'm pose to you. Something to think about. Stages of the vaccine. What would this vaccine that we taken or would take or required to take by the government eventually? Is this something you're comfortable with? Have you thought about the side effects in the future? There's been a lot of discussion over the internet and social media in general. But you have to wonder, do you really want to be a sheep? And that's something that you really should research on your own. Now, the question you also have to ask, do you believe in the government? Do you trust them? These things you should research before you take the vaccine. But again, we're going to discuss this a little bit more in detail. And this is, again, the first episode. So it's going to be a weekly podcast. We're going to touch on a lot of different topics. It's definitely going to be controversial. This is light stuff. Now, continue what I was saying. I was checking out YouTube, surfing, again about the coronavirus. I found something very interesting. It's on 60 Minutes Australia. Check that out, 60 Minutes Australia. And there's a video. You check it out. Scientists say coronavirus, or let's say this again. Scientists say a coronavirus vaccine in just 12 months is fake news. Check out that video. It's a 12 and a half minute video. And it breaks down that certain scientists, renowned scientists, that talks about it's fake news about the coronavirus. Something you have to really look into. One, if you do your research, you'll find out that vaccines in any lab anywhere in the world, it takes more 5 to 10 years, give or take, for it to be ready for the public. It have to go through trials, testing with animals, humans if they volunteer. But it's amazing that this vaccine is ready to be shipped under a year. And I want you to listen to this clip set up. And this is going to be an introduction. It basically talks about how this is very sketchy. So I'm going to just play a little clip, and I'm going to go into it in a moment.
Waiting on getting us to the other side of the pandemic. Promise it'll happen within 12 to 18 months. But hang on a minute. Vaccines normally take decades to formulate, and quite often success never comes. So why should we be so optimistic now? As Liam Bartlett finds out, some scientists say talk of a coronavirus vaccine is not only raising false hope, it's fake news.
Now again, you might clarity of it, maybe you might didn't hear it clearly, but if you didn't, my apologies. But definitely check that video out on YouTube. It's Scientists Say a Coronavirus Vaccine is just 12 months. It's fake news. That's the title. You find it under 60 Minutes Australia. And again, it's a scientist that talks about this matter. Now, I'm going to see if I can get to it and have you listen to one of the scientists that discuss this matter.
Available to all, affordable to all.
It's the great hope galvanizing the world. A vaccine for COVID-19.
It's humanity against the virus.
We can't get back to full normal until we develop vaccines.
Again, I'm going to fast forward. These are politicians basically vouching for it. And again, they're supposed to. It's part of good business. But I'm going to try to get to this particular scientist that will expound on this matter.
Against any disease that I'm familiar with is about 7 years. The average time is 20. To be talking about a magic bullet coming in months it borders on the absurd. One of the best places.
Professor Arthur Kaplan is Director of Medical Ethics at New York University.
I'm not saying don't spend the money. I'm not saying don't do the research. But we can't plan public policy on a miracle.
Okay, so again, he gets into a little bit more detail, and you can always research that particular scientist and get more information. But point I'm making, this is just one of many people, many scientists, doctors, all over the world that you can research, and you can Google it, you can YouTube, you can social media. You can basically research and gather this information. So it's a big red flag with this vaccine all over the world, and renowned scientists is discussing this. So it's just not just regular average Joes. It's something you really should look into, because at the end of the day, you must protect your family. So that's something that you really should value, research, especially families that have children. You know, in life, there's always loopholes to everything. But you really need to look into this before you volunteer being a sheep. Now, the final thing I want to discuss today, dealing with the COVID, is the exemptions that some people might have. And one, it depends of the country you reside, or state or province. If you have a medical condition, a severe case of bronchitis, or certain anxiety issues, claustrophobic issues, that is documented with your family doctor, that you can prove. That's something you probably will need going towards the future. That's something because, one, employers is getting pressured from the government, so don't be surprised in the near future that employers going to implement proof of COVID vaccine tests. And when you're on the plane, or traveling, I should say in general, you might need proof of these medical conditions. So you need to really talk to your family doctor and figure that out, because it's definitely going to be a different world within the next 6 months to a year. Even it's starting to change right now. So you as an individual, and if you have a family, you need to start lining yourself up with knowing the laws within your region and the limitations. Because most likely, and this is my opinion, COVID-19 is going to be part of our life within law for the rest of our life. just in case some people don't really understand that, just think about the New World Order, which that is real. You can see that all around, from currency and the vaccinations. And I don't want to get too deep with that, but just sticking with the COVID, you need to protect yourself. You need to figure out how to survive. You have to find out, even within your job, what's going to be implemented that you have to do. My suggestion, if you can especially, is branch off and be self-independent. That way you can be under the grid a little bit. You still utilize the system, but start lining yourself up. That is very important. Once again, I'd like to thank you for listening to this podcast, episode 1. And there's going to be much more coming down the pipe in the future. Just wanted to give you a little taste of my perspective. Again, thank you. Pass the information around. Well, pass this, I should say, this podcast to people that's in the know. And we will talk again. And again, I'm going to get into many different topics. And trust me, it will be controversial. But it's informative, I feel. And again, it's for people that is in the know. Once again, thank you. Stay safe and stay strong.